Hey everyone, I'm Stefan Lin.
And I'm Alex Yip.
And this is the 20s Grind podcast. In this episode, we are going to be going over how to frame your future. So I think that is actually a really dense question, and it's something that isn't necessarily easily taken apart in like a year or 2 years.
5.
I mean, there's for sure people who are well into their 30s and 40s, 50s, 60s who still don't know what they want to do. And that's okay though. I don't think that we should fall for that societal trap where you're 18, you declare a major, and then you get stuck in that major, and then you graduate and you go to a job, and that's it. I think that you have to really conceptualize what future means for you, and I think that you should be aiming towards a point in the future, or the point of aiming towards a future is to get to a better place than you are now. And how you define better, that's completely up to you. Everyone has a different kind of definition of success or comfort or whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. But I think it's interesting that sometimes people focus too much on a goal, and they can sometimes blind themselves, and they throw up blinders like, I'm just gonna, like, if your goal is to make 6 figures after graduating, you're probably not going to be too happy. I mean, you might, I don't know, I mean, we're different
that's
people,
not a goal, like, that's just the amount of money you want to make. That's not a valid goal in my opinion.
But you never know, and I think, again, this is just coming from my background, like, anyone out there who, dabbles in jiu-jitsu, Eddie Bravo, who is the founder of 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, he moved to LA, and he never wanted to be like a jiu-jitsu master or anything like that. He really moved there to, like, be a rock star. Like, he left to go and play music. That's his passion, and he still plays music, but it's just happened along the way that he ended up being a savant in jiu-jitsu. So I think and this is also, again, my perspective, just because I come from like a science background, but we don't actually see the world in objects, we see the world as tools. And I think it's very important that you have to be able to see your future not just in a one-dimensional way. Like, if you see the world, there's that famous quote where it's like, if you give a man a hammer, the entire world is a nail, right? So, and there's a lot of like psychology to back this up. If you've taken any psych class, there's the basketball game where there's a gorilla, like, literally Google gorilla test, and what it is it tells you, hey, count the number of times the players pass the ball, and you're so focused on that there's a man in a gorilla suit that walks across, beats his chest, and leaves, and no one sees it because our attention.
I remember that.
Our attention is honestly crap. It is not as strong as we think it is, and if you just take that as a metaphor for how you're setting your future and setting your goals, like, yes, you should be focused on your goal, but at the same time, you also have to kind of take a step back and be mindful of what is it that you don't see while you're pursuing what you think you want.
Then it becomes a question of, like, also what, like, how do you learn what you don't know? Like, you know how that, you don't know what you don't know, then how do you discover that X factor?
And that's exactly what I realized, like, midway through my undergraduate career at Boston University, and I realized that I actually just don't know anything. I tried to start another podcast, and then when I was talking to some of my guests, I said some things, and then in my head I was like, ooh, maybe I'm not right about that. And then suddenly there's that doubt, and I'm like, I never fact-checked any of this. I just assumed this to be true, and it's just like, you hear it and you assume it's true, but I never looked at the numbers, I never looked at the stats. And then I realized that I am so far from being the well-learned man that I want to be. And that's, for me, my goal for my 20s, and I don't know about you, Alex, but my goal is to learn everything I possibly can about anything, because I don't think I have enough colors in my palette to be able to know what I want to paint. I think that's probably the clearest way I can say it.
So you're doing a lot of things right now, or what are you doing?
I'm learning as much as I can about anything. If there's something that's boring, I ask myself, why do you find it boring, and find a way to make it interesting.
How do you do that, though?
I force myself to read it.
Okay, reading.
It's here. So, yeah, reading everything, absorbing everything. Everything's important, I feel like.
So that's how you frame your future, right?
Yeah, that's how
you're framing your current
plan on flaming. Yeah, I mean, like, if you ask me what I'm doing 5 years from now, I honestly have no idea. Okay. And I don't think I have the tools to be able to build the house that I want to build. I still need to collect and hone and improve my competency in everything, because I don't know, right? Like, you don't know if you have a hidden passion that you just never tried before.
For me, framing the future has always, like, for you, you have an outlet of reading, right? And I think we actually talked about it a little bit in the past week, actually. What you were sending me some articles and stuff. But for me, like, I learn that X factor, what I don't know, by talking to people, meeting people from different industries, that studied a different major than I did. I mean, I was a business major at first. Well, actually, no, I was a finance guy my freshman year, and I did a complete not 180 but 90-degree turn into like information systems and technology, consulting path, that kind of stuff. But that change really resulted from me meeting someone at an event and talking to them and learning about their perspective, and that kind of set me up to think in a different way. I was like, wow, I didn't know that technology was really consuming all these finance jobs. So why would I want to go into finance, a shrinking industry? It's actually a shrinking industry. Why would I want to do that?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, that was what I learned my freshman year. So I was like, why would I want to study this when I can, this guy who's been in the industry for 40 years is telling me now to go into tech. So I think it changes, like what you said before. It changes depending on your state, the stage in your life you're at, and a lot of other factors.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it's important to note that your age is not necessarily a good factor of how far along you are towards seeing your goal. You know, like,
definitely.
Like,
spot on.
I was clueless at 20, and I know people who at 16 were like, I'm gonna be a doctor, and I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna study bio, and I'm gonna
why do we frame ourselves in that age, that certain sort of, like, you know what I'm talking about? When we were in like maybe sophomore, juniors in high school, we already started thinking, what am I gonna do? Like, we needed to have a plan by that age. Yeah, I think that question pops up at every single age.
Yeah, and it's a very tough question. It's a very tough question to answer. But I also don't want to frame this, like, our discussion, I don't want to frame it as, oh, it's okay, you don't have to have a passion, you don't have to pursue something, you can just figure things out, and then you do that into your 30s and 40s. And no, that, like, at some point, there's going to be something that sparks an interest to you and is going to resonate in you the way that like, a beautiful piece of music resonates with you, and that's what you should pursue. You should triple down on that.
What if you're like a go with the flow kind of person, though?
Okay, that's rough.
And there's I've people like this. We both have friends that are like this, right? So what happens to those people?
I've thought about this a lot, and I can't speak for them. Maybe if that's genuinely what makes them happy, but for me, it feels like a cop out. It feels like I'm pursuing a life without meaning. It feels like I'm sacrificing a goal or purpose, and I'm trading that for a lack of responsibility.
Wow, that is attacking. I mean, no, not really, not attacking.
But you know,
it's pretty strong.
It's a fervent opposition, yeah. But the thing is, I don't think you can honestly know what or who you are until you push yourself to the max and overcome and fail at challenges that you just, like, you have to go, you have to do. That's what 20s grind is going out and doing things, right? It's taking risks, and because you're not, like we said at the very beginning of the podcast, you're not tied down by family, you're not tied down by like,
so you're not like, so you're telling me, like, if I were to kind of frame my future right now and kind of basically framing your future is setting yourself in a path, staying in one lane, right? But those people who are kind of free spirits, walking the earth, and they have this go with the flow kind of vibe, you're telling me that they don't have a purpose, and so they're basically lost.
Because that's exactly how I feel about it. And unless you have a very well specified goal, when you have a well specified goal, look, when I wish somebody had told me this, when you pick your major for college, you should be able to write a 12-paragraph essay with citations about why you want that major.
Why 12?
You should be able to, I don't know. This is the number I picked out. But I'm saying you should be able to defend what you want. And if you can't, then you don't really want it. Then somebody else is inflicting that on you. Somebody else is telling you should be a doctor, you should be a lawyer, you should be whatever. Because if you really want something, you'd be able to talk about it on like a 5-hour podcast about why X subject is so great and means so much to you.
Okay, so now we can go on with this, but so basically in order to frame my future and in order to not be lost and kind of find my lane per se, your way is to basically read, consume a lot of different information, learn most importantly after you read. That's the most important part. And then for me it's talking to people.
I know, I completely agree. I mean, like I talked about in the last podcast, I switched from introvert to extrovert, and like...
I have a question. I want to ask the question, like, whoever is watching this, the people who are all the podcast listeners, I want to know how you guys frame your future.
Yeah.
In the comments,
I would
anywhere.
love to know that.
Yeah. Because we're just two people, Stefan and I, right?
Yeah. We're mortal. We have mistakes, and we'll honestly probably laugh at this in a year from now.
and I think that's
we'll see how
we're
it
gonna
goes.
look back at this, and I think the way we frame things is gonna change, because right now we're in our 20s. This is a 20s grind, right? It's crucial. I also agree that free spirit. Well, I didn't agree to the extent where you said that they're completely like utterly useless. The language you used was super strong, but that's that's
let me explain that. No, let me explain that. The way that you framed it, I'm assuming you're talking about people who are like, yeah, I don't really know what I want, but I'm gonna be all wishy-washy about it, and I'm just gonna, whatever life gives me, I'll just take it.
Yes.
I fervently disagree with that kind of mentality, because I think that you don't have meaning and you're not looking toward, like, I'm not saying you should set a goal and your entire life should be towards achieving that goal. That's the toxic mentality of like, I really want a Porsche, so I'm going to work my butt off until I can buy a Porsche.
Yes, that's when I think
then what happens once you get it?
Yeah, that's when it gets bad.
When you get it, then you're just worried about buying the next damn car.
Yes,
and
exactly.
You're
a
out
means
of
to an
love
end.
with the majority of your life. Exactly.
So
I'm not saying that, but I'm saying you should have a general path and you should pursue it and explore your world.
I think you're right. Keep going.
I think if you just walk without a sense of direction and you're just letting life hit you in the face, that you're actually lost in a fog. And if you don't know if you don't have a standard of what you would like, if you don't have a framed future, then you can't fail and you can't succeed, because nothing's happening.
Yeah, you need a direction.
You're not challenged.
You need a direction.
If you're lost in a fog, you won't know when you fail, and you won't know when you succeed, because it's just there's no purpose. You're just existing.
Dude, there was this example, and I'm totally gonna miss a crucial part of this with my psychology people. I think you might even be able to finish this, but
maybe,
basically there was this experiment done when there's a person in a room and they kind of just wait, actually I'm kind of afraid to say it because I'm gonna fucking ruin it, but I'm gonna do my best. Basically there's this person, right, and if the person in the room is trying to get across without any directions, and they come across an obstacle, they're gonna like look at the person who's administering the test and be like, what do I do? But if the person who's administering the test tells the person that their goal, their main purpose in that room is to go across the room, and then they put an obstacle in their way, that person will circumnavigate that obstacle. And the whole point is that you need a direction, you need a goal to achieve.
Yeah.
Otherwise, when there's obstacles, you're not going to know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I've never heard of that. That's, but it makes sense.
Do you understand?
I mean,
I don't know if I said it 100%. I'm 90%
I get what you're trying
to
say. So I can probably articulate this because I've worked with rats for 2 years, and the way that you slowly train a rat to do a certain kind of text is that you first introduce it into like an open maze, let it wander and explore all these things, and then if you want it to do something, you have to train it to go to like the right corner or something, right? You give it a treat and it'll go there, it'll go there, go there. But then once you put an obstacle in there, it will investigate the obstacle, but it will know that, hey, I know there's a treat here, I'm just going to ignore it, this is just in the way. But if you don't give the rat a goal and you just let them explore and you put an obstacle there, they're going to be obsessed with that obstacle.
I see. Exactly.
That becomes their goal. That's their goal, is to examine, what is this new thing? There's nothing else in here but this bottle.
And that's not good.
I have to... And that's detrimental towards your quality of life, because you're obsessing over obstacles.
These little things.
More so than,
these are little obstacles. They're supposed to be little.
Exactly.
like little tiny hurdles, and eventually, if it perpetuates, it just becomes an entire life filled with obstacles that would just ruin your life and anything you want to achieve, or not achieve for that matter, because you didn't even, you didn't even frame what you wanted in the first place.
Yeah,
it's kind of in between, like what you said. It's not success or it's not failure, which is what, a waste. That's really strong too. I'm gonna take that back, but it is interesting.
See,
though.
This is what I was talking about. Like, you even see, like, we're kind of like hesitant on putting things out there because we just don't we're not sure, and our opinions are definitely gonna change. But that's the part of life that's beautiful, is that you're always learning, you're always correcting yourself, and you can change your opinion. You're allowed to do that. I wish somebody would vocalize that, because a lot of people think that, no, I have to do this because I've always believed this, and I think that's dangerous. And I mean,
it is dangerous.
Without a doubt, there's people who said, hey, I'm gonna be a dentist, and they are on their last year of being a dentist, and they're like, I'm actually pretty miserable, and I pretty much just slaved away for the last 8 years, I don't know. And it's time it's not wasted, I guess, because you can extrapolate useful things from it. But there was a alternate universe where you pursued what you wanted, and it's not easy. Your future might not be if you wanted to be a rock star. I'm not saying pack your bags and just hustle all the way over. You have to be realistic about it too.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's what we're saying is in moderation, and I feel like a lot of the short quotes, the motivational quotes you see online, have the danger of being taken to DEFCON 1, where somebody says, I need to pursue my dreams, so that means I need to pack up and quit my job and just be smart about it, please. That doesn't, it means save up a separate fund, still work your job, still be responsible, don't flip off your boss.
For those the listeners who are kind of, if you're 22 and you already started working and you don't like what you're doing, you have to calculate the decision that you'll make. You don't want to do what Stefan says and then have no money to pay for rent, food, or you need the basic funds to survive. So do the bare minimum job. That's what I would do. And every other second that you're not there should be working towards framing your future and how you're going to get there. Because once you have that goal in mind, everything else in between you and that goal is just going to be a breeze.
And I think it's really important to say that you might not know what you want your future to be by the end of your 20s. It's a really, really hard question.
Yeah, and it has to be genuine. You have to be really true to yourself.
Yeah.
Very, very authentic. It's like self-awareness.
That's exactly. Oh, we should do a podcast on that. That'd be great.
That is gonna be a podcast for a lifetime.
Yeah. But I think it's difficult because to frame a future, I mean, is difficult. Self-awareness is also difficult. But what I'm saying framing your futures. Framing your future is difficult because I don't think most people know what they want, and I think that's what terrifies most people. And the only way you can get over that is honestly just exploring the world. And we have that opportunity, so go ahead, try different things out. I mean, I almost got sucked into a life of purely science, and then I ended up taking a business minor, and then it's such a weird combination, right? For a neuroscience major and a business administration management minor, it's bizarre. Not that many people do that, but I love it. I love that there's two different kinds of crowds. And not only that, it exposes you to other, like you said, other people. Because the mentality that I experienced in the business school is completely different than the mentality that I experienced in the science realm.
And what is that?
Science is very, clean cut, study. Business is a little more...
You interact with other people.
Interactive, yeah. I think science ultimately boiled down to being more competitive, and business had as much as there's the huge everyone thinks that you're just the Wolf of Wall Street. I don't think that's the case. If you've taken a business class, you realize that there is actually a very heavy emphasis on the human connection and on cooperating, because life is way easier when you work with people versus against them. Actually, life is way better when you work with people instead of for them. I think that's important to point out too.
That's deep. I like that one.
So it's this, I feel this podcast has been somewhat vague, but there's a reason for that, and it's I don't think you or I genuinely know what we want to do. We have a direction, and that's what we're chasing, but and the second part of why it's somewhat not as in-depth as I would like it to be is because it's damn near impossible, because I don't know what our listeners want.
Right now, I'm doing everything.
Yes.
You know that. I'm doing everything. Everything,
yes,
like...
I'm on the exact same page.
I know.
And I love it.
But this is the age, though. This is the 20s Grind podcast. This is the time to be doing everything. Try new things.
Yeah. And hey, if you're 30 and you're listening to this, just pretend it's the 30s Grind podcast. You still got time. You're still young. You can still do things. It's a weird paradox, right? It's a weird paradox of you have time, don't sweat it, just keep your head down and grind it out. But it's also at the same time like, yes, you have time, but don't waste it. Like, you need to be spending that time very wisely. It's a weird paradox in the same sense that like your future, you should be aiming towards something, but that shouldn't consume your entire life to the point where you close off all the other opportunities.
I like that. Let's end on that. I like that.
Yeah.
Wait, actually, I have a question, dude. What's gonna happen when we turn 30? Are we gonna... What's gonna happen? Are we gonna change the name of the podcast?
We're gonna rebrand the podcast to 30s Grind.
All right, let's end it right there.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for listening. We appreciate the love and support. And this is the 20s Grind podcast, and we look forward to, exploring the world with you.
Yeah.